Last time you pulled your favourite trick, walked me right up to a door, then sauntered off into the dark before you'd open it. We'd spent all night counting the field, and out of the counting fell a law, and out of the law fell the shape of space itself. And then, on the threshold, you dangled one more thing in front of me and refused to explain it. A brand new thing to want.
I did, and tonight I pay out on it in full. But say it back to me first. What was the thing I left you wanting?
Not how hard the field shoves. I've had that in hand since the night we learned to count it. The new thing was subtler, what the shoving costs me. What I spend or what I pocket dragging a charge from one place to another through all those lines.
Then let me stand the one picture we lean on back up, gently, because everything tonight hangs off it. Take a charge in your hand and shove it through the field, straight against the lines. You sweat. You spend real effort, the way you'd strain and grunt, hauling a heavy crate up a ramp. The field pushing back on you the entire way.
And if I let the charge go the other way instead, turn it loose to travel along the lines, the way they're already pointing,
then the field does all the sweating for you and hands you a free ride down. That's the shape of it in one breath. You spend on the climb and you coast on the drop. Effort going out one way, effort coming back the other.
That phrase rang one very particular bell, loud and unmistakable. It's the whole spine of the mechanics course, strolling back in through the door. Hills and valleys, an energy landscape. You climb and you pay. You fall and you're paid back. And the ground itself keeps a strict ledger of every last scrap of the effort.
That's precisely the right bell. And tonight we build the hills it's ringing for. Only these hills are woven out of charge and field, not out of stone and gravity. Back in Newton's world, you already had a landscape of your own, and I want to borrow it wholesale, before we rebuild the same shape in new material.
Borrow away, it's yours. Which piece of the old one are you reaching for first?
The boulder. Picture the thing you kept from that course. A great boulder perched right at the lip of a cliff, sitting dead still, not moving a hair. And yet everyone standing anywhere near it flinches. Sit with that a moment. Why on earth would anyone flinch at a rock that isn't so much as twitching?
Because of the fall it's got waiting inside it. It's stock still, no motion at all, and yet the thing is loaded, plainly, obviously dangerous, purely and entirely because of where it happens to be sitting, high up. Roll that identical boulder onto flat, open ground and nobody gives it a second glance. So the menace was never in the boulder itself, it was in the height.
Exactly. And we gave that stored, waiting menace a name in the old course. Potential energy. The energy a thing carries not because it's moving, but purely because of where it sits, against a force forever itching to move it. Mind, a heavier boulder at the same height carries more menace, so the height really measures the menace per pound, and the full menace is height times the weight. Lift a weight against gravity and you've loaded it, right there in your hands.
Effort held in reserve. That was the phrase I kept. You do the lifting now, and the height is the lift held in escrow, waiting to cash itself straight back into motion the instant you let go and step away. Nothing's happening, and yet everything's poised to happen.
Just so. Now follow it across. A charge sitting out in a field is that same loaded boulder, poised on a cliff of its own, except the cliff is invisible, and the thing hungry to drag the charge down off it isn't gravity. It's the field. That's the only swap we're making. Same cliff, new landlord.
So the charge is perched on some hill I can't see, holding a drop it hasn't taken yet, exactly like the boulder. All right, I believe the shape of it, but I want to feel the climb in my own arms before I trust it. Show me a charge that costs me real effort to move.
Take two charges of the same sign, two pluses, say, that can't abide each other for a second. They shove apart hard. You felt that in your hands with the balloons on the very first night. Now grab one of them and start pressing it inward, in toward the other, straight against all that shoving. As you drive it in, are you spending effort or is the field handing it to you?
Spending, and spending hard. It fights me the whole way in, like squashing a stiff spring that only shoves back fiercer the closer I try to close the gap. Every inch nearer costs me more than the inch before it. So where's all that effort I'm pouring in ending up? The books have to balance. You hammered that into my skull last course.
The books balance to the last scrap, and here's where your sweat goes. Every bit of effort you spend driving that charge inward gets banked, stored in the very closeness you forced the two of them into. You've hauled the boulder up its cliff. Take your hand away and they leap apart, all that banked effort roaring back out as motion, down to the penny. Nothing was lost while it sat there. It was waiting.
So closeness is height. Shoving two like charges together is hauling the boulder up the cliff. Turning them loose is the boulder taking its fall at last. The energy I paid to close that gap is sitting there in the gap, patient, waiting for me to so much as blink. I've been rolling a marble around on a set of invisible hills this entire time, haven't I? And calling it electricity with a completely straight face.
Hold that phrase tight. Before we're finished, those hills will be solid enough to sketch on paper. That stored, waiting energy, the effort banked in wherever a charge sits against the field, is the electric potential energy. The same beast as the boulders, to the bone, only now the terrain underfoot is spun entirely out of charge.
Wait though, before I get too comfortable, I don't think every charge sits up on a hill. Two pluses shove apart, fine, so driving them together is uphill work. But a plus and a minus pull toward each other. They want to close the gap. Bring those two closer and they're only too delighted. They'll do the job themselves, no sweat from me at all.
So then tell me, what does that second pairing feel like, drawn onto the same landscape? If the first was a hill, what's this?
Not a hill I'm labouring up, no. The exact opposite. A slope running the other way entirely. A valley. And the two of them are tumbling down into it, gladly, hand over fist, without my lifting a finger to help.
There's the split, drawn clean in two strokes. Two like charges are a hill for each other. Press them together, and you climb, banking effort as you go. A plus and a minus are a valley. Let them near, and they roll together on their own, spending stored effort and handing you free motion out the other side. A hill where things repel, a hollow where they attract.
So the landscape isn't some strange new law you've bolted on over the top of the old physics. It's the pushing and the pulling I already knew from the first two nights, redrawn as ground I can walk on. Which way the terrain happens to tilt at any spot is nothing more than which way the force was already trying to go.
That's the whole of it, and a lovely way to hold it. Now one snag stands between us and actually drawing the thing, and I suspect you can already feel it coming.
I can, and it's a sharp one. This potential energy, it can't be a feature of the place all by itself, can it? It leans on what I happen to be dragging through it. A big fat charge fights the field far harder than a scrawny little one over the same stretch of ground. So the numbers tangled up with the mover, not clean and fixed to the map.
That nag is the doorway to everything that follows, so I'm glad you snagged on it hard. You're onto it. Haul a bigger charge up the same slope and it costs you proportionally more, every single time. Which is a genuine nuisance because what I truly want is a map of the terrain itself. One that doesn't redraw itself the instant I swap out the marble I happen to be rolling across it.
So you do the plain, obvious thing you always do to a nuisance shaped like that. You divide it right out.
That's the trick, yes. Instead of asking for the bill that one particular charge ran up, we ask the price per unit of charge. Strip the size of the mover clean off and keep only what the spot itself charges you, by the pound, for the privilege of standing there.
A rate, then, not a bill. The going price of the location, with the size of my own wallet taken carefully out of the reckoning. The place's fee, quoted per unit of charge, whoever shows up carrying it.
That rate is the game from here on out. The potential energy per unit of charge. What a place costs you for each scrap of charge you carry into it is what we name the potential. It is, quite literally, the height of the landscape at that spot, the altitude of the ground beneath your marble. And it squares with the boulder exactly. Its height stood for energy per pound of boulder all along, so height was always the per unit quantity. The real energy is that height times the charge you carry.
And I'd bet good money it wears a plainer, homelier name than the potential when it's off duty.
An older one, and one you've said out loud 10,000 times while meaning almost nothing by it. The voltage. That's the word.
Voltage. Of course it's voltage. I say it about batteries and wall plugs and dead phones and light bulbs, and I have never once in my life known what the word was pointing at. And you're telling me it was this the whole time, the sheer height on a hidden terrain. How loaded a spot is, measured per unit of charge you carry there.
That's what a volt has been quietly measuring under your nose your entire life. Energy per unit of charge, said as plainly as it can possibly be put into words. 1 volt is one measure of energy handed over for each measure of charge you shift through a spot. Volta's name got fixed onto it long ago if you'd like a peg to hang the word on. But the peg matters far less than what the height does next.
Fine, but so far, honestly, this is a tidier way of billing me for a climb I was already paying for. What does turning the cost into a height actually buy me that the field wasn't already handing over for free? The field told me the push at every point. This tells me the price at every point. Same news, different jacket. Where's the real mercy in it?
The mercy is that it throws every one of the arrows away. Think back to what the field truly was. An arrow at every point in space, a push carrying both a strength and a heading, the whole spiny sea urchin of it bristling outward. To carry that around in your head, you had to lug a full quiver of arrows, each aimed just so at its own spot. The height carries none of them. At every place, it's a single bare number and nothing more. How high, with no direction of any kind.
One bare number, no arrow. Oh, that is a mercy. That's a proper kindness. Finally, a thing I can just read straight off the map. No aiming, no stopping to squint and ask which way this one faces. Only a height, like the figure printed beside a contour line. This spot has so much, that spot has so much. After a whole night of arrows, you've slipped me a number I can fold up and put in my pocket.
A number you can pocket, yes. And it's worth naming precisely what changed as we did it, because the two blur together the moment you stop watching. The field is a vector, a strength and a direction at every point, an arrow through and through. The voltage is a scalar, a strength and absolutely nothing else, a bare figure. The same physics runs underneath both, but one wears a compass at every spot, and the other wears none.
Trading a whole bristling quiver of arrows for a single quiet field of plain heights. That, I think, is the best bargain you've put on the table yet. I'll take it, and gladly.
It is a fine bargain, but don't go running off over-claiming it. There's one caution to bank before you spend a penny of it.
Go on then. Where's the trap door you've hidden under the rug this time?
The height is not the energy itself. It's the energy per unit of charge. The rate, remember, not the bill. Keep those two apart.
Right. So if I want to know what it genuinely cost me to drag my one particular marble up there, I take the height and I multiply back in how fat my marble was. The height is only the rate the place quotes. The actual bill still rides on the size of the charge I chose to bring along. Miss that step and my numbers go wrong.
That's the trick of it. There's the field, force per unit of charge, an arrow. There's the voltage, energy per unit of charge, a height, a bare number. And there's the actual energy your particular charge banks, the height times the charge you carried up the slope. 3 genuinely different animals, and confusing any two is the commonest wrong turn on the map.
Field, height, energy. 3 animals kept firmly apart, and I'll not let them breed in the dark. But now a fresh nag is forming, and it's about maps again. I feel like I'm suddenly holding 2 of them.
2 maps? Lay them both out and tell me what's on each.
The field, first, arrows everywhere, 1 at every point. And now this new height, the voltage, a bare number also at every point. But they're describing the identical charges, sitting in the identical space. So either I'm lugging 1 map too many around, or these 2 are secretly the same thing, wearing different coats. Which is it? Because I flatly refuse to carry both up the mountain.
You refuse rightly, and I'd think less of you if you didn't. Which of the 2 do you suspect is the imposter?
Neither's an imposter, surely. I suspect they're one thing glimpsed twice. I refuse to believe nature keeps 2 whole separate maps. But I honestly cannot yet see how a quiet field of headless numbers could ever hand me back all those bristling arrows. The heights feel like they've thrown away exactly what the arrows were carrying.
Then let me walk you to it, slowly, on the landscape you already trust in your bones. Set a marble down anywhere you like on a rolling hillside. The height of the ground tells you how far up you're standing, fair enough. But what actually makes the marble roll, what it feels through its little feet, is not the height at all. Not one bit of it.
Isn't it, though? Surely the higher up it sits, the more urgently it wants to roll off downward. That's my gut, at least.
Then your gut is about to be corrected, gently. 2 spots can sit at wildly different heights, and the marble resting on each of them feels precisely nothing, so long as both spots are flat. A marble parked on a mile-high plateau sits there, serene, not stirring, however staggering the drop somewhere far off at the edge.
Ah, so it isn't the height. It's the tilt directly underneath it. The steepness, right there, right where the marble sits. A gentle grade gives it a slow, lazy nudge. A sheer cliff edge sends it screaming straight down. So what actually pushes the marble along is how fast the height is changing right at the spot beneath it. Not how high that spot is.
How fast the height is changing. Bite down hard on that phrase, because you've gone and spoken the whole secret aloud without noticing. The push a marble feels is the slope of the landscape. Not how high you happen to stand, but how sharply the ground falls away from under your feet. Now lay your 2 maps flat, side by side, and look. The height is the voltage.
And the slope of that height, the steepness of it, right where you stand,
is the field. There it is. That's the join between your 2 maps.
Oh, that's it. That's the whole join, isn't it? The field was never a second map at all. It's the steepness of the first one. The voltage is the height, and the field is nothing but how hard that height is tipping right where you're standing. A flat stretch of voltage, no field whatsoever, a cliff in the voltage, a savage, roaring field. They were never 2 things wrestling for room in my skull. The arrows were the slope of the heights the entire time.
That's it exactly. And now feel how much that single join buys you. Wherever the landscape pitches up steep, the field runs strong. Wherever it eases into a gentle grade, the field goes soft. And wherever it lies flat, the field falls clean away to nothing. You keep only 1 map, 1 landscape of heights, and the field reads straight off its steepness, everywhere at once, for free.
Then let me pin the direction down, because a slope has 2 ways it can face, and you've been suspiciously quiet about which. The field runs along the steepness, sure, but does it point uphill or downhill? I'll wager uphill. High voltage is where all the energy's piled up high, the loaded end, the dramatic end. So the field surely points up toward the heights, up toward where all the action's stacked.
Confident and pointed the wrong way, which is the most useful way to be wrong. Don't guess at the marble. Go and watch the actual one. Set it down on the slope and take your hand away. Which way does it go?
Down. It rolls down, obviously. Of course it does. A marble doesn't go climbing hills of its own accord, and I knew that stone cold the very second you made me picture the real one instead of arguing about it in the abstract.
Down it goes, toward the valley, shedding height the whole way, never once climbing back up toward the peak under its own steam. So the field points the way the marble genuinely rolls, straight downhill, from high voltage down toward low. Down the slope of the landscape, not up it. Steeper hill, harder shove.
So a positive charge turned loose in a field runs downhill, from high voltage toward low, shedding height as it goes, cashing its stored energy into pure motion as it falls, exactly the way the boulder does coming off its cliff. The field is pointing, at every spot, in the direction a positive charge is aching to fall. That I can hold.
There's one wrinkle to carry out of that, though, or it'll bite you later. Not everything on this hill falls the same way. A positive charge rolls downhill, high to low, shedding energy as it drops. But a negative charge does the flat opposite. It rolls uphill, low toward high, climbing the very slope the plus tumbled down.
Uphill? A thing that goes and climbs the slope entirely on its own, no hand pushing it.
Because that climb is the direction its own energy drops. Remember, energy is height times charge, and its charge is negative, so for it, high voltage counts as low energy. Same landscape, same slopes, unflipped. The plus rolls down and the minus rolls up. The two passing each other going opposite ways, because the sign in front turns the same hill upside down for them. So mind which marble you've set down before you call where it goes.
Two marbles that roll opposite ways down one single hill, the plus tumbling down, the minus climbing up. That'll trip me every time if I get sloppy, but I can see the plain sense underneath it. They carry opposite charge, so the same slope pays them off in opposite directions. The hill doesn't change, the sign of the traveller does.
Opposite charge, opposite payoff. That's the rule, hold it close. Now, you keep instinctively reaching for the word contour, over and over. Let's stop dancing around it and actually stand you on one.
I'd like that, honestly. On a real paper map, the contour lines join up all the points sitting at one single height. Is there an honest version of that here, in the voltage landscape? A path I could walk a charge along, where the height never once changes, where I'd carry it clear across the field and never spend a thing.
There is precisely that, and it's the backbone of how anyone draws one of these landscapes. Trace out every spot sitting at one single voltage, one fixed height, and what you get is a line, or really a whole curving surface, threading its way through space, every point on it level with every other point. Those are the equipotentials, the contour lines of the voltage exactly.
And walking a charge along one of those costs me flatly nothing, because the height never so much as budgets the whole way round. I'm never climbing, never dropping, only strolling round the shoulder of the hill at one fixed altitude. The marble content and idle the entire circuit. The equipotential is the free lunch, the stroll that never sends a bill.
That's the one. Now here's the question that matters. How do those contour lines sit against the field arrows? Line them up in your head. What's the angle between them?
I think they run alongside the arrows. The two of them lined up cozy together, pointing the same way, marching in step. The contour and the push, shoulder to shoulder, down the same heading. That's my guess, and I'll commit to it.
A reasonable guess, and wrong by a clean right angle. Look at the hill again. The field points straight downhill, the single steepest way down, the exact line the marble bolts along when you release it. The contour runs around the level, the one direction that costs you nothing whatsoever. Those two simply cannot be the same heading. They're strangers.
No, you're right. They're as far apart as two headings can possibly get. The steepest plunge straight down, and the flat idle amble around the side. They cross each other square on, don't they? At a right angle.
Always, everywhere, without a single exception. The field meets every equipotential at a right angle, wherever the two cross.
And now that you've said it out loud, it truly couldn't be any other way, could it? If the field had even the faintest whisker of a lean along the contour line, then walking that contour would quietly cost me a little something. The push would be nudging me sideways along it as I went. The only way the level stroll stays genuinely free is if the shove is aimed straight across my path, off the edge of it. So perpendicular isn't luck, it's forced.
By the physics, not by me. So there's your map at last, drawn in full. A landscape of heights, contour lines threading it at every level, and the field firing straight downhill across those contours at right angles, everywhere you look. Hand me the voltage across all of space, and I'll draw you the entire field. Sketch the contours, then shoot an arrow down the steepest way across each one.
The height contains the whole field folded up inside it. That's a bargain and a half. But I'm still drawing these hills in the abstract, and I want one under my feet. Give me the simplest thing in the world. One lone positive charge, sitting all by itself. What does its landscape actually look like, drawn out?
It builds a mountain. A single, tall, sharp peak rising right at the charge, where the voltage runs highest of all, and the ground sloping away from that peak in every direction at once, falling off steeply up close, then leveling out flatter and flatter toward the distant plain far away. And the field, read straight off that slope, points down and outward everywhere, away from the peak. Steep and fierce right up near the summit, then soft and mild far out on the flats, where the ground barely tilts at all.
But that's the sea urchin spray of lines from the very first night, isn't it? The spines shooting straight out of the charge. Only now I finally see why they point outward. They're rolling downhill off a mountain, every one of them. And a second positive charge dropped onto the slope rolls away, out and down and gone. The two pluses shoving each other apart. It's just a marble quitting a mountaintop.
The two pictures fused into one, at last. Now swap the sign and watch the terrain flip. One lone negative charge doesn't raise a mountain, it digs a pit. A deep funnel, plunging down and down to its lowest point, right at the charge itself.
And a positive marble set anywhere on the wall of that funnel rolls inward and down toward the center, straight toward the charge, which is just the plus being pulled into the minus, isn't it? Attraction is a marble sliding down into a hole. The pull I've known since the balloons, redrawn as a pit.
A hole dug the other way up. The same landscape trick, run with the opposite sign. And the equipotentials draped over these two shapes. Can you see those now too?
I can feel them, yes. Round a single charge, the contour lines aren't lines at all. They're whole spheres, aren't they? Nested shells, one inside the next, each one a fixed distance out from the charge, and every point on a given shell sitting at the same height. Like the layers of an onion, each layer its own steady voltage. And the field spikes straight out through every shell at a right angle, dead radial.
Come back wearing a brand new hat. The same roundness doing the same work. Because the charge plays no favorites among directions, every point at a given distance sits at exactly the same height, so the equipotentials fall out as those nested shells. And the field, crossing each shell square on, fires radialing outward. Steep through the tight inner shells, gentle through the wide outer ones.
Folded right in, neat as anything. But there's one thing still gnawing at me about this whole business of height. A height on a real map is always measured from somewhere, from sea level, and we all shook hands on that a long time ago. So what plays the part of sea level here? Where's the true zero of voltage? The real solid floor of the landscape that all the other heights get counted up from?
There isn't one. And here's the freeing part of that. It does not matter in the very slightest. Nothing you can ever go out and measure leans on where you happen to plant your zero. Only differences in height are ever real. how far you climbed getting from here to there, how much a charge actually spent crossing from this spot over to that one. The rest is bookkeeping.
But that ought to be a catastrophe, surely, not a comfort. If there's no true zero anywhere, then the height map is floating free, unmoored. I could shove every single number on it up or down by the same lump sum and change absolutely nothing. That should make the voltage meaningless, a number I made up. And yet you're smiling, so I've missed something.
Should it, though? Turn and look at the map hanging on your own wall for a second.
Oh, hold on. Sea level is like that too, isn't it? We picked it. The Earth never handed the line down to us on a tablet. We simply needed one shared line to measure everybody's mountains from. And if I shifted that agreed line, every altitude on every map would shift together, all at once, and not one single mountain would stand a hair taller against its own valley. Nothing real would move.
There it is, arrived at before I could hand it over. Voltage runs on the same rails. Slide the entire landscape bodily up or down, every number at once, and every difference between two spots lives on completely untouched. So every real, measurable thing lives on completely untouched, right alongside it. The zero is yours to plant wherever it's most convenient. The differences carry all the physics.
So when I quote you a battery's voltage, I'm never naming some absolute height at all. I'm never quoting more than the drop from one terminal to the other. It's a difference wearing a single number's clothes all along. That lone figure means anything at all because we've agreed, off to one side, to plant the far end down at zero.
A difference in a single number's clothes. Keep that one. It'll save you every single time the word voltage tries to sound grander and more absolute than it has any right to. Voltage is always a between here and there, between this terminal and that one, between the spot you care about and the spot you chose to call the floor. There's no such thing as the voltage at a lone place, only from one place to another.
Always a from here to there, that's clean, and I'll keep it. But here's a sharper worry that's crept up on me now that I trust the differences. This whole beautiful landscape only holds together if every single spot has one settled, definite height. But I get a charge to that spot by walking it there through the field, and there are 1,000 different paths I could take to arrive. What if the long, winding, scenic route cost me more than the straight shot?
Then say it out loud. What would that do to the height of the spot?
Then the height of that spot isn't one number at all, is it? It would depend on how I got there. 2 different routes, 2 different bills, no single honest answer to how high is this place? And the map would just fall to pieces in my hands. The contour lines would be a lie. I'd have drawn a landscape that can't hold still.
That's the question everything tonight has been leaning toward, and you've walked up to it on your own 2 feet. Which means the landscape rests on one fact I haven't yet given you. And here it is, before we go a step further.
Then out with it, please, because you've told me my gorgeous landscape might be a fiction, and I can't unhear that. Is the cost the same by every path, or isn't it? Straight answer. I would very much rather learn it now than after I've gone and fallen hopelessly in love with the picture.
The cost is the same by every path, every single last one of them. Drive a charge from here to there by the straight line, or by the wildest, most wandering, looping detour you can possibly dream up. And the effort you spend comes out identical, right down to the final scrap. A field that behaves this beautifully we call conservative. That's the word for it.
And the electrostatic field, the field of charges sitting still, the one we've been drawing all night, is one of these conservative ones?
Right down to its bones, yes. The field of charges sitting still never charges you a different fare for a different road. And that fact, quiet as it sounds, is the permission slip for the entire landscape. Without it, there's no map at all.
Then say more, because I want to feel in my gut why it's the same thing as the map existing. If the cost genuinely doesn't care about the path, then every route into a spot rings up the identical bill. So I can staple one definite number onto that spot, call it the height, and no sneaky detour can trick it into showing two different values. That settled height only gets to exist because the field refuses to charge me extra for the scenic way round.
There's one more tidy way to feel it as one picture. Walk a charge out from a spot, take it around any closed loop you please. Big, small, looping, crossing itself, whatever you like, and bring it all the way back to where it started. In a conservative field, the bill for that entire round trip comes to exactly nothing.
Nothing at all, because I spend on every climb along the way, and I get every last scrap of it handed straight back on every drop, and so I arrive home even, not a coin up or down. The loop pays for itself perfectly.
Every loop, no exceptions. And a field where you came home from the round trip somehow richer or somehow poorer would have no landscape at all. No consistent height to speak of anywhere.
So there's no sneaky little circuit I could run a charge around and around forever, quietly skimming a bit of free energy off each lap like a rigged casino. The books close on every loop, always, everywhere. And that's the same statement as the height existing, only told from the traveller's side of things instead of the map makers. Two faces of one single fact, and I'd only ever seen one of them before tonight.
Two faces of one fact, and that's the reason we're allowed to keep drawing hills at all. Now let me finally hand the landscape something solid to chew on, because so far it's been all empty space and imaginary marbles. Drop a real lump of metal into the picture, a conductor, a chunk of stuff whose charges are free to roam, to slide about inside it wherever the field cares to push them, and then just let it settle. Sit undisturbed until nothing's moving.
Let it settle, meaning leave the thing alone until nothing's stirring inside it anymore. All right, while it's still settling though, the loose charges inside are feeling the field, aren't they? So they're getting shoved about wherever the push points. And they'll keep right on sliding for as long as there's any push at all left inside to slide them.
So follow that to its end. When does the sliding finally stop?
Only when there's no push left anywhere inside the metal at all. When the field in there has dropped clean to nothing. That's the one way it ever truly goes still. The charges shuffle around until they've run out of any reason to move. No field, no shove, no more sliding.
There's the punchline. As long as any field lingers inside the metal, it shoves the free charges and they flow. So by definition, the thing is not yet settled. Settled means the flowing has stopped, and the flowing stops only when the field inside has been killed stone dead. So inside a settled conductor, the field is exactly zero. Not faint, not small. Zero.
The charges kill the field themselves from the inside, purely by shuffling around until there's nothing left to shuffle them any further. The metal quiets its own guts. And if the field in there is zero everywhere, then on my landscape, where the field is the steepness, zero field has to mean zero steepness. No slope anywhere in the whole lump, not a single tilt.
Which makes the entire lump, top to bottom,
one single height, flat, dead flat, a plateau, level all the way through, every corner of it at the same altitude.
in the fullest sense of the word. Every point of a settled conductor sits at the identical voltage. The outer skin, the deep interior, every corner and edge and crevice, all one shared height. The whole solid body of it is a single equipotential, through and through.
So, a lump of metal is a perfectly flat parking lot. One dead-level slab of tarmac where a marble would sit, wherever you set it down, because there's not the faintest tilt anywhere to get the thing rolling. All that ferocious field business raging and bristling outside, and the metal itself is the one boring, level, featureless car park in the entire wild landscape. I did not expect the dramatic answer to be, it's flat.
And look hard at what that flatness forces next. If the inside is one dead-level plateau and the field in there is zero, then where on earth did all the charge get to? It can't be sitting in the interior doing nothing. Any charge buried in the body would spray field lines and wreck the flatness on the spot.
So it gets driven clean out to the skin. Every last scrap of the excess charge rides right on the surface of the metal. The interior is hollow of charge, in effect, dead flat, field-free, and all the drama banished out to the outer skin, where it can't spoil the plateau.
All of it out on the skin. And now, past that skin, the very first sliver of space outside the metal.
The field can't be zero out there, or the lump wouldn't do a single thing to the world around it. So what's the field actually up to, right at the surface, on the outside face of the metal? It has to be doing something.
Right at the surface, it stands bolt upright, dead perpendicular to the skin, poking squarely out of it, or squarely into it. And you can read the reasons straight off the landscape without my telling you a word. The surface is an equipotential, one-level contour, and the field always crosses a contour at a right angle. So it can only ever leave the metal square on.
And a field with even a whisker of sideways lean would set the surface charges skating along the skin, so it wouldn't be settled yet. It's the same settling argument, run one thin layer further out. So there's the portrait of a settled conductor. Flat inside, every loose charge banished out to the skin. The field standing bolt upright off that skin like quills on a hedgehog. All of it forced by two little words, let it settle.
Not one piece of it put in by hand. The landscape simply handed you the lot. And there's a small gift hiding inside all that flatness, worth pocketing before we move on. Hollow the metal out, scoop a cavity right in the middle of the lump, an empty room walled in on every side by conductor. Now, what's the field inside that empty room?
The walls are all one single height, one plateau. So the empty room they enclose has no slope reaching into it from anywhere at all, does it? So the field in the hollow is 0, 2, a completely dead calm, right in the middle of everything.
0, 2. A protected, walled-off calm. Climb bodily into that hollow room, and the very fiercest field you could ever throw at the outside never once reaches you in there. The skin drinks every bit of it and holds the inside serenely at one flat level. Nothing gets through.
A metal box that fences the whole outside worlds push clean off its own insides, purely and entirely by being one flat plateau. That has to be good for something out in the real, practical world. That can't be mere curiosity.
It's good for a great deal. It's the very reason the metal shell keeps the storm off whatever's tucked safely inside it. And the picture traces all the way back to Faraday. Charges quietly rearrange themselves on the outer surface to cancel every scrap of the outside field within. The flat plateau isn't only tidy and elegant, it's a shield you can hide behind.
A shield built out of nothing whatsoever but flatness. I genuinely love that. All right, you've handed me one flat plateau and shown me the tricks it does alone, and I can feel you now winding up to reach for two of them, because you never once stop at a single anything when a pair will make twice the mischief.
Two it is, of course. Take two of your flat metal plates and stand them up facing each other, a narrow gap of air between them, not touching. Now pour some charge on, pile extra plus onto the one plate, and strip the same amount off the other so it turns minus. Two conductors, two plateaus, now sitting at two different heights, with a gap of pure field strung taut across the space between them.
Two flat car parks then, one raised up above the other, with a slope running straight down the gap from the high one to the low one. And all the field lives packed in that gap between the plates, running straight across from the plus plate down to the minus. And the charge just sits there, trapped, the plus aching to reach the minus, but the strip of empty air won't let it cross. A stored standoff. Two crowds glaring across a no-man's land.
Precisely. And that standoff carries a name you'll know, a capacitor. two conductors holding equal and opposite charge, with the field and the energy penned up in the gap strung between them. You've stored charge, yes, and you've also stored the effort it took to drag that charge apart in the first place, banked right there in the taut gap. Now the sharp question: pile on still more charge, and what happens to the height gap between the plates?
More charge on the plates. Hold on, let me not blurt a guess, let me reason it properly. More charge means more field lines strung across the gap. More lines packed into the same gap means a stronger field, a steeper slope running down it. And a steeper slope across that same little gap has to mean a bigger drop top to bottom, a bigger height difference. So piling more charge on drives the two plateaus further apart in height.
And the two climb in strict, faithful lockstep. Double the charge you park on the plates, and you double the height gap between them in flat proportion for one given pair of plates. That's the defining habit of a capacitor. The voltage across it grows right in step with the charge sitting on it. Cram more charge in, and the plateaus spread further apart. Drain some off, and they sag back toward each other.
Rise and foolish as one. So a capacitor is basically a bucket for charge, where the voltage across it is the water level, showing at a glance how full it's got. Pour more charge in and the level climbs. That's a tidy device. But something's been nagging me all this time you've described it. Someone had to do the piling. Someone had to drag all that charge off the low plate and up onto the high one, against the shove, uphill the entire way.
Someone certainly did. And that someone is the one thing you've been quoting voltages at all night without once picturing its actual job. A battery. The capacitor merely holds a standoff once it's been made. It can't make one itself. Leave it truly alone and it holds that charge indefinitely. But connect anything across it that lets the charge trickle back, a wire, a bulb, any path at all, and it sags flat, the plus and minus draining together through the road you gave them.
So something has to keep on hauling charge up the hill, against the drain, to hold the two plates apart. Picture it for me then, because I've always half imagined a battery as a little sealed tank of charge just waiting to pour itself out, and I'm now fairly sure that picture is dead wrong. If it's doing hauling, it isn't a tank at all, is it?
Well worth fixing here and now, because it is wrong. The right picture is a pump, a tireless little pump that grabs charge down at the low end, lifts it bodily all the way up to the high end against the field's downhill shove, and holds it firmly there. Not a sealed tank of charge waiting to spill, an engine that keeps on lifting, holding a cliff wedged open by main force.
A pump holding a cliff open by main force. So a battery isn't storing up charge to give away at all, it's maintaining a difference. It seizes hold of a fixed height gap and simply refuses to let it close, hauling charge back up the slope as fast as anything downstream tries to drain it away. It clamps its two ends, one set distance apart in height, no matter what I go and hang between them.
Which is the exact opposite of the capacitor, and that's the cleanest way to hold the pair of them apart in your head. The capacitor floats its voltage up and down with whatever charge it happens to be holding at the moment. The battery does the precise reverse. It clamps its voltage at one set height difference and pumps whatever charge it must, as hard as it must, to keep it there. One stores a standoff and lets it wander. The other pins the cliff at a fixed height, come what may.
A storer and a pump. Perfect mirror images. The capacitor pins the charge and lets you read off whatever height that charge makes. The battery pins the height and supplies whatever charge is needed to hold it there. Between the two of them, plus the flat plateaus and the sloping gaps, I think I could sketch out most of the electrical clutter in my house.
A startling amount of it. And every last piece would be nothing more than plateaus, gaps, and slopes on the landscape you drew for yourself tonight. Which is the one thing above all I'd want you carrying back out the door. Voltage isn't some new substance we bolted onto the field as an afterthought. It's the field itself, seen as terrain. The same physics you already owned, handed back to you as a country you can walk across on foot.
A country I can walk across. I'll take that gladly and pack it in my bag. But I can feel you drifting toward another door, so before you slip off into the dark again, let me name the one thing that's been sneakily true of this entire landscape from the very start. Because I've this second caught it. Nothing has been moving. Every charge tonight has sat perfectly still, or been shoved by hand and then let settle. The whole country's been frozen solid.
That's the hinge of the whole next night. Everything tonight, everything across all three of these episodes, in fact, has been charges at rest, or charges we nudged once and then let settle back into stillness. Still charges, standing fields, a frozen landscape you can map at your leisure with a pencil. But charges don't have to sit still forever. Let them run. Let a real stream of charge flow, a current, and something brand new wakes up out there that no still charge could ever stir into being. Something the frozen landscape alone can't account for, however carefully you draw it.
Something new. Of course there is. You have never once left me at a door without a fresh thing already humming faintly behind it, hidden out of sight, to keep me up at night. And I know exactly what you're about to do next. Make me wait a whole entire episode for it. So, before you go, only the name alone, so I've got something to gnaw on. What is it that a moving charge conjures, that all my still ones tonight never possibly could?
Its name is magnetism. Set a charge moving, and it reaches out and touches the world in a way no resting charge ever does. A second force, woven right through the first one, that shows its face only when charge is on the move. That's the door standing open for next time. What a moving charge conjures that a still one simply cannot. But the last word tonight is yours, the way it's always yours, standing there at the threshold.
Magnetism. Of course you'd leave me the one word and none of the rest. I'll gnaw on it all week. But here's the shape I'm carrying out into the dark. The next time somebody quotes me a voltage, I won't picture a juice or a glowing stuff or a tank waiting to pour. I'll picture a height on a hidden hill and a charge somewhere out on the slope of it, working out which way to roll. See you next time, once the charges finally start to move.